Alright, I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate how to paint this 12-step color wheel in Tempera paint. So before I even start painting, before I get paint on my brush, I want to make sure I am all set up. First thing is I need my worksheet. Of course I would want my name on it. I also want to make sure that my worksheet has all the correct color names in the correct locations. It's already labeled, ready to go. And then I've also labeled on the inside here whether it's a primary, tertiary, or secondary color. So that's done ahead of time. The other thing is I have my palette. We're going to use foil. On my palette I have the 3 primary colors, red, yellow, blue. I actually took way too much paint. This is something that's going to happen to you too. What you want to aim for is like a quarter size of paint. It is going to kind of bleed into each other. But notice on this foil, I have folded it in half and I put my paints right in the middle because you're going to use this foil again tomorrow and the next day, and we're going to store it at the end of class. We're going to fold it in half. We're going to fold up the edges. This goes in your folder and will come out again tomorrow. The other thing I have is I have my water and I have my paintbrush. So I'm ready to go. I'm ready to mix. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick one of my primary colors. What I did for you on this worksheet is I recommend that it's yellow. It just makes it a lot easier. Using Tempera paint, I'm only going to have water in order to switch colors. I don't want to thin down my paint. So I did rinse out my brush before I started because I don't know if the artist before me actually cleaned out their brush all the way. So it is clean. I'm going to go ahead, make sure it's dry, then I'm going to take my yellow. So the yellow, the easiest thing to do for painting is to start at the edge, kind of outline or cut in the edge. I want to make sure that it is an even covering, that there's not thicker areas and thinner areas. And notice how I am turning my paper. I'm using brush strokes. I am not using scrubbing. I'm not like... So I'm going to go ahead and paint yellow. There's my primary color that I'm starting with. If you want to start with red or you want to start with blue, you can, but I'm going to show you why this works out. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a yellow-orange. So to do a yellow-orange, I'm going to take some of my yellow, because I don't want to get all of my yellow dirty, and I'm actually going to take a good amount of yellow. I'm going to put it off to the side, just one side. I'm mixing everything on one side because when I fold this up at the end, it's going to make that ink blot mirror image on both of the sides. I don't want to waste paint and mix it and get it dirty. So I need to make a yellow-orange, and you might have to look at resources around the room. I'm going to take just a tiny bit of red and I'm going to mix it all up on my palette beforehand. So this whole entire pile of yellow-orange, or of yellow, is now becoming yellow-orange. So what I want to do, and what I want you to do before I paint, is to test on the side to make sure that's yellow-orange. I want it perfectly in between yellow and orange. It is better for me to make this too light or not orangey enough than to make it too orangey. So I don't know if I did put enough orange in there. So what I'm going to do, or enough red actually, to make it a nice yellow-orange, I am going to go back and paint a second layer. Some of these might need a second layer to make them smooth, even, and consistent. I want to stay inside the lines. I want it to be the correct color. I want it to be in the right spot. Getting in the corners can be tricky. Sometimes I get way too much paint on my brush and I just need to wipe it off and load up just the tip of the brush with paint. Alright, these will dry a little bit lighter, so it is a good idea to test it out on the edge. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more red to the same pile to make what I would traditionally think of as a regular orange. And you can maybe see right there, that turned really quickly. I did not add that much red, and I feel like it might be too orangey, but I'm going to paint it on there. It might be too orangey, so I'm going to grab a little bit more yellow. It's always easier to make it darker than it is to make it lighter, so I grabbed a little bit more yellow. See how I'm twisting my brush? There's just too much paint on the whole brush. I want it just on the end. Alright, I'm going to paint an orange. Want to make sure I'm neat. You kind of get the idea what's going on. Then, once that's done, I'm going to mix up a red-orange. So I just add more red, and you saw how quickly it turned to just a regular orange. Red-orange is pretty tricky because you don't want it to look just like red, you don't want it to look just like orange. Again, I'm going to test it out here. Not red enough, so I'm going to add more red. So use this space out here to test, but make sure your painting is very neat. So when I have a good red-orange, I'm going to paint in red-orange. So up until this point, I have not had to rinse out my brush at all. So once that is completely covered, then I am going to rinse my brush. I'm going to paint red. And red is just an unmixed color. When I have red, then I'm going to start mixing in violet. But I don't have violet on here. So what I have to do is I have to mix in the next primary color, which is blue. So I'm going to take red, I'm going to add a little bit of blue to get a red-violet. Paint that in, more blue, rinse out my brush, paint blue, and then go and continue through to green. So when I'm finished, I should have a 12-step color wheel. It should have even steps in between, and it should be really neat.